Incredibly, and this really is quite incredible, 1 out of every 4 senior citizens in America are trying to live on an income of less than $15,000 a year. Think about that. The legislation that I've introduced would make Social Security solvent for 75 years and increase benefits by $2,400 a year for seniors who meet that.
Bernie Sanders bringing the heat to Congress. Bernie Sanders just had a hearing not too long ago talking about the retirement crisis and the need to increase Social Security. So remember that $200 per month Social Security increase that Bernie Sanders originally spoke about, the Social Security Expansion Act? Well, he talks more about it at this hearing. I'm going to play the full speech of what he was saying. You're not going to want to miss that. Also, Bernie Sanders talking about this, warns that nearly half of older Americans have no retirement savings, saying, in the richest country in the history of the world, a secure and dignified retirement should be available to every American, not just the extremely wealthy. Well said by Bernie Sanders. He also points out a lot of different studies talking about in places like France and European countries, how they have such a low rate of poverty among the retirees compared to the United States of America. So something's a little backwards here. You're not going to want to miss what Bernie Sanders has to say. If you're curious about that $2,400 per year Social Security increase, you're not going to want to miss what Bernie Sanders has to say. So watch the entire video and I'll go over that and give you some other important updates. Before I dive into the main content, if you appreciate these Social Security updates, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for more Social Security updates. And this video is sponsored by my company, Wise Sense. If you or anyone you know is looking to increase your credit score, got my details down in the description below. All right, so Bernie Sanders calls for major overhaul to solve retirement crisis, saying if Congress can bail out the crooks on Wall Street, please do not tell me that Congress can't support a secure retirement for working Americans. So Bernie Sanders definitely gets it when it comes to Social Security increase and the need to help out not only seniors, retirees, but our most vulnerable people in our society. Bernie Sanders is definitely pushing for more change. Also, what's said here, what I said before, Sanders' report warns that nearly half of older Americans have no retirement savings. And he has pushed the bill and proposed $2,400 extra in checks expanded and reintroduced into Congress. So the Social Security bill, the Social Security Expansion Act, would give an across the board to every Social Security recipient an extra $200 more per month or $2,400 more per year with the Social Security Expansion Act. Now, whatever happened to that? Where did it go? Well, it seems like we keep hearing, Congress members saying, why aren't we having a vote? Why no votes? You're not going to want to miss what Bernie Sanders has to say about that. So take a look at this video right here.
The purpose of this hearing is that the issue we're going to be discussing is of enormous consequence, but unfortunately, I don't think it's getting the attention that it deserves. I want to thank all of the witnesses for being here, and I look forward to a good and serious discussion. Let me start off by saying that as a nation, we have more income and wealth inequality today than we've ever had in the history of America. While the billionaire class becomes wealthier, our social safety net for the most vulnerable in our country remains far behind other wealthy nations. It's a disaster, and if we do not get our act together, it's only going to get worse. We have the highest rate of childhood poverty of almost any major nation. Our child care system is now dysfunctional. More than 600,000 fellow Americans are homeless, and over 85 million are uninsured or underinsured. But let's be clear. It's not just the children and the poor who in the richest country on earth are hurting. Our nation's senior citizens are struggling as well. The truth is that we now have a retirement crisis in America that demands our immediate attention, which brings us to the subject of today's hearing. In the United States today, almost 45% of older Americans between the ages of 55 and 64 have no savings at all and no idea how they will retire with any shred of dignity or respect. 45% of workers between 55 and 64, zero retirement savings. And as frightening as the retirement crisis is for older workers, it is even a bigger concern for the millions of senior citizens who are no longer able to work, who have exhausted all of their savings, and who have no pensions at all. Incredibly, and this really is quite incredible, 1 out of every 4 senior citizens in America are trying to live on an income of less than $15,000 a year. Think about that. While over half of our nation's seniors are trying to survive on an income of less than $30,000 a year. Just put yourself in the place of that person. How do you pay the rent? How do you pay for health care and prescription drugs? How do you put food on the table on just $15,000 or even $30,000 a year? And the truth of the matter is that many cannot. That should not be happening in our country. According to the OECD, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, we now have the dubious distinction of not only having one of the highest rates of childhood poverty in the industrialized world for our children, we also have one of the highest rates of senior poverty compared to other wealthy nations as well. In Denmark, only 3% of seniors live in poverty. In France, 4.4%. The United Kingdom, 15.5%. But in America, over 23% of seniors are living in poverty. I would hope that we would agree that that is simply unacceptable and that's got to change. 50 years ago, it was not uncommon for corporations to provide workers with a defined benefit pension plan that guaranteed a monthly income in retirement. Back then, many corporations made a promise to their workers. If they worked at the same company for a reasonable period of time, they would be rewarded with a monthly check that would enable them to live comfortably in retirement. Not a radical idea. That's what it was then. The longer you worked at the same company, the bigger your retirement check would be. And the employer would bear, in those days, all of the responsibility to fund the pensions of their workforce. Sadly, tragically, those days are mostly behind us. As a result of a relentless 40-year war on the working class, waged by corporate America, traditional pension plans have become an endangered species on their way to extinction. And the result for workers has been tragic. In 1983, 31% of American workers were at risk of not being able to maintain their standard of living in old age. In 2020, that number rose to 51%. In other words, we are moving in exactly the wrong direction. All right, that's the problem. What do we do to address that crisis? First, at a time when far too many seniors are living in poverty and many have nothing in the bank for retirement, we must expand Social Security, not cut Social Security, as many of my colleagues in Congress would have us do. And we must make Social Security solvent for the next 75 years, so it'll be there for our kids and our grandchildren. Legislation that I have introduced, along with 9 co-sponsors, accomplishes those goals. According to the Social Security Administration, the legislation that I've introduced would make Social Security solvent for 75 years and increase benefits by $2,400 a year for seniors who need them. How do you do that? My goodness. How do you do that? Well, at a time of massive income and wealth inequality, we have the radical idea that maybe the people on top should start paying their fair share of taxes. Today, a billionaire pays the same amount of money into Social Security as somebody who makes $168,000 a year as a result of the cap on the Social Security payroll tax. Got that? You make $1 billion a year, you make $168,000 a year, you pay the same amount. Anybody in America think that makes sense? I don't. The legislation we have proposed would lift the cap on Social Security starting at $200,000. You do that, tax all income, Social Security is solvent for the next 75 years, increase benefits by $2,400 per person. But that's not all that we have to do. In my view, every corporation in America should be required to provide a retirement plan for their workers. And if corporations choose not to offer a retirement plan, they must give workers the option of contributing to a federal pension plan similar, guess what, to what members of Congress have. How's that? Good for Congress, good for the American people. Today, federal employees and members of Congress have a certain percentage of their salaries deducted from their paychecks and put into the FERS program that provides a pension based on salary and years of service. Bottom line, if it is good for members of Congress, our staff, it's good for the American people. That's where we are. We got a crisis. I think we have some common sense solutions, and I look forward to working with members of this committee to address them. Senator Cassidy, Mike is yours.
What are your thoughts on what Bernie Sanders has to say? I think most people on Social Security, most retirees, most seniors would agree with Bernie Sanders there. Let me know your thoughts. And that is all the news that I have for you today to hopefully cheer you up a bit. Here's my daughter Bella's tip of the day.
Hi guys, this is Belle. This is the tip of the day. I'm going to tell you the one thing that you should do. Whenever you feel down, and you have no longer positivity, you have negativity, chase that negativity away. Be nice to the positivity, because the negativity makes you feel wrong, bad, and doesn't make you feel good. Negativity, it means negative, bad. Positivity, good.
If you want to see another poster boy for Social Security increases, you're not going to want to miss this video right here as Representative John Larson speaks again only a few days ago in Congress about the need to increase, expand, and reform Social Security. So click that video now and I'll see you in that video. Take care, be safe. Thank you for watching.